Hi, and a warm welcome to Space by Stansons, the podcast where we dig into the dreams, experiences, and lessons learned from leading voices in the design industry. Our guests are the real rock stars of this show, and we're super grateful to them. Today, I'm jumping into a chat with Blair, an associate designer at Savills. I've got 3 projects to ask him about. Firstly, an early memory that has shaped his career. And secondly, a current scheme we need to keep a lookout for. And lastly, a future project that would be of his wildest dreams. And hey, before we roll, we feel the love when you share, rate, or follow the show. So please go for it. Now, on to Blair.
Well, thank you, Blair. Thank you so much for joining us. It's lovely to have your energy in the room, and I'm dying to hear your stories. So, kicking off, your role now, can you just really quickly just tell us where you're at and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I am an associate workplace designer with Savills, and we are a kind of small team within the larger Savills business of around 20-25 people. Mm-hmm. We were previously called KKS, and then acquired in 2019, so 5 years ago.
It's flown.
Yeah, it's gone so quickly. Yeah, so I joined 3.5 years ago, so already post the kind of acquisition. And we've seen a lot of changes during that time, from kind of moving into the main building, new leadership, things like that. But it's all quite exciting stuff that's happening.
Yeah. So day to day, your role involves...
So standard interior design tasks, although there's not really much standardization in any interior design. So dealing with clients, so understanding what they're looking for in their brief, designing to that brief, creating 2D plans, space plans, 3D visuals, models, a surprising amount of Excel as well for a designer. But yeah, lots of different creative content making aspects.
Ideal. So jumping into the first project, what was an early memory of a job that's kind of shaped you to today? Shaped the Blair that we know today?
Yeah, this one isn't necessarily a project, but I always remember it. I started my career with a smaller firm, which was Scottish based, but had a London office of about 5 people, which was 2 directors, 1 senior designer, and then one of my friends from university and me. And there was one week where almost everyone else was on holiday. It was just me and one of the directors, and he just asked me, I think this was week 2 of my career, to do a grommet drawing. And I was like, okay, what's that?
I'm going to say, what's that? So
I still don't know. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, I kind of just looked at this plan and was like, oh no, I don't know what to do here. But I could see there was circles and stuff, and vaguely understood that I had to put circles in different locations. But a grommet drawing is for the kind of power for furniture, like a grommet in the floor.
I see.
But yeah, at that point, I didn't understand what that was. And I just always remember being like, I should have just asked. But yeah, it was one of those things where you're like, oh, I don't know what this is, but I'll just do it anyway.
So you were basically planning out the power and the space.
Power and data for desking, loose furniture, things like that.
Yeah, so you're a junior designer at the time. Do memories of that, do you wish you had been more bold? Just ask questions. What
Yeah,
what would you say to yourself back now?
Oh, absolutely. Just ask hundreds of questions, be annoying, ask every question that you can. It's absolutely one of those things where it would be so much easier to just ask the question. But as a young junior designer, 2 weeks in, being like, should I know this already?
You doubt yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So today, you're obviously much more senior position. Do you have junior designers reporting to you?
Not directly, no. We are quite not top heavy, but we're quite advanced. I don't know what the word is, but all of our staff are quite experienced. Minimum kind of probably 5 years of experience currently. So we don't have any juniors per se.
Yeah. But I can imagine if I was a junior, I'd want to work under you.
Thank you.
Because you would say, you'd explain what a grommet drawing was.
work within Savills. We work quite independently on projects. So each designer, depending on the scale of the project, obviously, will kind of be allocated a project. And if you're a director and either associate or associate director, you kind of work on it together. Or if it's like a larger project, probably more than 15,000, 20,000 square foot, then you'd kind of start to have a bigger team. So that would be 2 or 3 people working on it together. And that obviously varies depending on kind of what stage of the process we're at. So if it's a very early stage, it would be our strategy team. So we have, I think, 6 strategists on our team, including change management and development strategy, and they do a lot of work in those early stages. And then they kind of hand it over to the designers and stay involved to kind of like see the process through. And then we obviously do the concept design and the development of that design and coordination, and then at some point we kind of work collaboratively with our technical team as well. So they would do a lot more of the detail in the technical drawings and checking the regulations and things like that.
Yeah. So back to early days, like with this little Scottish architect in London. Was there any projects that you did for them that stood out? Any brands that you kind of remember today?
One of, I think, my favourite projects that we did was, I think, probably one of the first ones we worked on. I think probably rose tinted glasses, everything's all new. So it was a good project though. It was at the time called iTelligence. I think they're now called NTT Data. So I think there was a position or thing there. And we designed their Coventry office. Less of an office though, more of a kind of like drop-in centre, client suite and training centre. So yeah, first job. Got to learn a lot on the job, particularly around like budgets and value engineering. But we still created a really beautiful project at the end of the day with a lot of coordination went into it to make sure that the client got what they really wanted, but it stayed within budget and made the wow factor.
Yeah, so you're working with like a bit like your chain now, from the technical and the strategic.
Yeah, well, because that was a smaller practice, it was kind of everyone does everything, and it just, you've got to. So we kind of had a brief set in the initial aspect, and then we had an absolutely brilliant senior designer, Laura, who now works at TP Bennett. Shout out to Laura Ficini.
We often get a shout out. Maybe she'll be another guest.
I know. But yeah, she was absolutely fabulous and great for me as a young designer, junior designer to learn from. She was very like detail oriented and hardworking and just knew exactly what needed to be done to make something come to life. Which when you're a young junior designer, you don't really know that. You can see the concept, but you can't see how to get it from kind of A to Z, which you kind of miss a bit in your education. It's a lot more of the kind of conceptual design this, but it never gets built aspect.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because as junior designers going to be listening to this for sure. What are those bits from the B to W, X, Y, whatever? Yeah. What are those bits that kind of should be in education, but they're not?
It's hard to put a finger on exactly what it is because every project is completely different. Generally, the most kind of important things are, well, it also depends on the environment as well, because we design for commercial spaces, so it's got to be commercially viable, which would mean it's got to be within a budget. Yeah. We might not always know what that budget is, but someone does.
Yeah, you find out after you've designed it.
Yeah, and then they say just slice it in half. But so yeah, it's got to be within budget. It's got to be buildable as well. It's got to be buildable within the time frame of the program as well, and it's also got to be kind of stand the test of time. So for commercial environments, you wouldn't put like a residential sofa in because it's just going to wear away after like 3 weeks because there's so many more people sitting on it, so much more traffic coming through. And I remember when I came into the industry, there was a lot of terminology that I didn't understand. So things like your Martindale tests, so your certifications, even now there's more comes out all the time, and that's where we kind of it's important to have a continued professional development or a CPD program, which I organise within our practice. But it's so important to stay on top of everything that's happening.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And education to real life, I mean, there is so many, it is so different. You've covered it well. So that's...
I think the education aspect never stops though, because when you come out of education, you're still going to keep learning.
You're starting again, aren't you?
Yeah. Even as someone who's got 5 years experience, you're still learning every day. There's new things pop up, regulations change, requirements of the client change as well. And projects change too.
And like back in the day as well, like sustainability probably wasn't such a big deal. And then COVID happens, and so no, I get it.
No, absolutely. It's interesting. We had we do a lot of interns for school age children who are kind of like about to leave. So kind of like 14 to 18 kind of year olds. And we had one recently who is going on to do architecture actually at Bath University. But he was saying when he did his personal statement, there was a huge aspect of that around ESG and your kind of like responsibility and things like that, which was never the case when I did it. So it's interesting to see how that's kind of filtered through to young people as well.
Yeah, in a way, they're kind of leading the way, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's interesting. And well, that's kind of I suppose that's kind of your juniors that you're looking after, I would say, like, because you're always influencing somebody for positive or negative, aren't you? Like, you're always an influence. And I get it, at times in your life you think, oh, no one's looking up to me. No one's ever looking up to me. But then someone might drop you a message, or you have someone through, or you'll hear that student on a podcast in 5 years' time saying, I worked with Blair and he just totally was really detail orientated and he knew everything and I just wanted to be like him. And you're like, oh gosh, I made a difference. Yeah,
and absolutely. I think you sometimes exist in your own little bubble of like your personality, and it's hard to see the kind of influence around you. We were talking about something the other day, and it's almost like a bullseye effect. Like you're this like central character. You're not a central character and everything, but like in your own life you are. And then there's these kind of like bubbles around you of like influence and how you impact people.
So talking back to that NTT project, what was the kind of brief around that? I mean, it was a bit more of a workshop rather than an office. What was the kind of core objective?
So it was about creating space that was really multifunctional. So it had to have some desking, so workspace for people who were there permanently, and some drop-in space for people who would drop by every now and again. But they wanted to create this kind of like central training room, which could be used for training, seminars, kind of board meetings, things like that. And we created like this central boardroom, which everything else kind of like rotated around. And just kind of to put that right in the center and then have everything complement it. So we had this boardroom training space in the middle, and then a kind of like cafe down the bottom part, some desking around, and then another kind of more staff-oriented cafe at the top. So anyone that's working there, they don't have to be kind of annoyed by any of the training noises that's going on. They can have their own kind of separate, peaceful space.
Interesting. Quite a lot of that actually applies to today's workstations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
It still is happening, which is great. And any particular lessons, anything that went wrong or anything you didn't know that you really learned on that job that you would pick up as a bit of a...
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I love this.
That was the first time going through a kind of coordination exercise, like I said, first project, so didn't know that had to happen. But yeah, we'd done quite a few designs where we'd chosen certain products to do that. I remember the lighting was a real thing. We'd chosen a product that you could do like these squares with, but it could also be like a T-junction, an L shape, things like that, because we had this beautiful kind of concrete coffered ceiling. So we wanted to like run the lighting along that. And when it came to the costing, it got value engineered down to another product, which we didn't like quite so much. But it turned out that this product couldn't do that. So it would have join lines everywhere there would be a joint. So then the contractor started trying to redesign it, which obviously don't start designing if you're a contractor. And yeah, the client was just like, no, it's got to be that fitting, just do it.
Yeah.
So it was good to have the client have your back in that situation, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes a client will see something, they'll be very supportive of it, which is great. Other times you'll see it and be like, oh, well, it might not be as important as what we think it is, which is fine. It might be down to the costing or the lead times or things like that. So it's really important as a designer to listen to what the client actually cares about, to make sure that kind of those things, if there is value engineering or challenges, that those things stay in the project, and that other things that they might not care as much about can kind of either come later or not come at all.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, because essentially our delivery for that. No, it's great. It's a great lesson for everybody, really, isn't it? I mean, it sounds simple, but then a lot of simple things, just hearing it again and the repetition of it is important for us. So going back to fast forwarding to today, what's about to be released or what's recently been released that we should keep our eyes open for?
In terms of
a new project or what you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm working on 2 projects just now, very different scales, which is exciting. I'm working on a small kind of 15,000 square foot project in Swindon, which is a client who's looking at redeveloping their HQ office. They have been the absolute best client ever. They've been really engaged, really nice, and really, really passionate about like creating this like beautiful workspace for the employees and everyone that's there. And it initially came through just as a kind of, I think, a strategy piece, but they kind of liked what we were doing and liked us essentially, which is nice. Nice to be liked. And we then kind of like got to develop the idea. They had an initial idea of what they'd want to do, which was quite a light touch aspect. But they had essentially the building is this almost like a ring, a rectangular ring with like a central kind of like garden space. But the
on the ground floor. So
yeah. But currently that space can only be accessed through the boardroom, which kind of defeats the purpose of it if no one's going to use it. So we kind of reoriented the space to bring the kind of staff tea point like right into the front of the house, so that now you can access that through the tea point space, and the boardroom is elsewhere, and the rest of the office has changed as well. But yeah, it was about putting that central space as a shared resource for all the employees and kind of improving the cafe experience as well, or the tea point.
Interesting. And what's in the garden?
Currently a lot of growth and some really big rocks. But yeah, we did some options of how we might redesign it. It might not go to the full extent, but just having the kind of access outside is the key point. But yeah, some really big rocks in there, so it was interesting to see how we might get them out, whether we need a crane or something, which was I think the big challenge.
And can you see the garden from all the sides?
All the way around, yeah.
So
it's glazed all the way around, yep.
Got that biophilic element.
Yep.
Lovely. That's nice. I have heard and seen much more, like where there's like a really prime view or something like that. Traditionally it would be given to like the managing director, CEO, all of that type of thing, and they would have that space, but it's been flipped on its head and it's now become like a communal space that everyone can benefit, everyone can access.
It's like that kind of shift of when we used to design every office as like a cellular office. They'd be around the perimeter, get all the natural light, and then everyone who didn't have a private office would be kind of like in the center away from the natural light and just have the LEDs or not even LEDs at that point. Whereas now we tend to design with the desking around the perimeter so that all the employees get the natural light, and then have meeting rooms kind of more inbound or against the core.
Because you're there for a shorter duration.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so this project, is it coming onto site? Is there anything like
Yep.
we could be looking out for?
We did have some budget challenges, but that got approved yesterday and we're all go. So need to do the tender drawings for that, and then it should be delivered by March next year, which is good.
Oh, exciting. And will that be bringing people back to the HQ? Is that the objective?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. They've had this space for quite some time, and they've got the whole building essentially, which is 2 floors.
Okay.
But they've had like various kind of acquisitions and changes over the years where their numbers have kind of like peaked and trough, and they now have both the floors, but probably enough for just enough people to have just on one floor. So that was the kind of brief initially, because they looked at leaving the building and going into another building in Swindon, and it was going to cost them, I think, twice as much for half the space, just with the agreement that they have for their rent. So they were like, that's insane, let's not do that. Let's stay here and make it the best office that we can. So there's been a big period of improving the M&E works, and during that period, everyone originally was down on the ground floor has now moved up to the first floor. So it's actually quite nice to have some extra space there where people can work. And then as of March, they'll come back down into the new head office space.
Yeah, nice. That's exciting. And they'll have access to a garden.
Yep. Yeah. Just in time for summer. Hopefully we get it this year.
Oh yeah, hopefully. Let's fingers crossed. Just install it and design in a sun.
Yeah, if we could just have some sad lamps all around.
I know we're joking, but actually seriously I was on a project and all the photos always like nice lighting, and it's got sun streaming in and like the wind's blowing the sort of curtains or whatever, and I was looking at all these pictures. Like, what do I love about them? The one thing I love is the sunlight. It's like, can you just design in the sun?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a bit of a joke with us now that it's just like, you basically want light and ambience and warmth and whatever comes with it. So it sounds like you have captured that best you can, depending on British summer.
Yeah. Which is not reliable.
Completely not. But yeah, no, good. And then you mentioned there was 2 projects.
Yes. So the other one is a really big project, which I'm working on with another designer and our kind of like senior designer, Fina. It is what can I say? It's a large insurance firm in 40 Leadenhall, which is about, I think, 40,000 square foot. So we were doing 2 floors, which has been a huge space, essentially, for quite a lot of people. And we are currently in the concept design phase. So we went through an initial pitch for it, which went well. And then there's been the kind of strategy aspect of finding out what they need and what they're going to require moving forward, which our strategy team has been really pushing forward and doing data-driven results, which is good. And then the space planning exercise, and now it's about creating the 3D models and showing the client how some of the mood boards and the furniture translate into a 3D space.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. And how's that going?
Good. Yeah, we're getting there. It's always hard when it's like a larger project because it's easier when it's like a small 15,000 square foot or something like that to work on it as one person for the 3D model or the 2D plans or something. As soon as it gets to a bigger scale, obviously more people come into it and different people have to own certain parts of it. And we all have unique ways of doing things. So the softwares that we use are very good in that they are quite adaptable, but that means that everyone has like a different approach to doing something. So for example, me and my colleague, we're modeling 2 different floors just now, and the way I would model something would be different than how she would model something, but there's elements of both on each floor. So it might be that we have to like steal elements from one another, or we'll just both get quite stressed out that it's not how we'd expect it.
But then that is like collaboration, isn't it? And it's kind of, I mean, I'm exactly the same. When I put stuff together in presentations and stuff, I work a certain way, and I'm just used to it. So I'm my fastest at that, and I deliver my best work. But someone else in the team will do it differently. Neither's right or wrong. It's just different. And then when you're picking up someone else's work, it's like, oh,
so this isn't how I do it. It's not wrong. It's just not how I do it.
Just understanding how their thought process was and why they got to that, and then moving forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's good.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. Just it's also going back to that learning thing. There's ways that you might do something that someone else would do differently that's in some ways better or more efficient, and by seeing it you're like, oh wow, I didn't even think of that, or something like that.
Do you work face to face a lot, or are you online teams?
Yeah, we are majority face to face in the office, which is really good. it just helps you like answer questions really quickly. You don't have to go through the process of making a Teams call, going to voicemail and checking calendars and things. But it's just, yeah, it's so much better face to face, being able to like coordinate things.
Yeah.
And we do some working from home, which I think we mentioned outside is really good for focused work. I find it so much easier to just like head down and like run through like tasks when I'm working from home. I think the office is absolutely great, and I do have to say that because I design them. But it's an office is very much a collaborative, you're surrounded by people environment, and it is so much easier to just get distracted or get involved in something, which is great. But it's so much harder to just head down and focus on something.
Yeah, no, but I do agree. Home has got its place. It's just, and I guess it's different for different workloads, companies,
And people as well.
types. Yeah,
Yeah. Also depends on your home situation, if you've got kids or animals, if you've got a big pile of washing next to you. But yeah, everyone's different. But yeah, for me, definitely, it's so much easier to focus at home.
yeah. No, I'm in that. I'm definitely in that bracket. So going on to this project that you mentioned, which sounds exciting. What's the sort of key drivers of them doing their space? Why are they even looking at
So they are so it is under NDA, so I can't reveal too much.
Yeah.
They are currently across the road in another building, and they're quite spread out in that building. So they want to bring all of their staff together on one floor, which is their main kind of business staff, and then have like support functions on another floor. And ultimately, they just want to create a more cohesive and collaborative environment where everyone is kind of within sight limits or on the same level as one another. It's not a case of, oh, where's Jan? She's up on the 7th floor. Let me get the lift in 2 stories over, kind of thing.
Okay, so they're quite fragmented in levels at the moment, and they're coming onto that one single floor plate essentially.
Yeah.
So bringing people together. Yeah. Nice. So that's basically goes back to what you're saying, working your team, people. Yeah. That's great. And what any objections? That's not the right word. Any challenges that are facing that are key learnings that you can say?
Yeah. I think this isn't just on this project, and I'd be interested to hear what your opinion is on this. I found since the pandemic, decision making has been a lot more fragmented and slow. So we have it a lot on projects now where we'll have a clear program, and we'll kind of like meet that program with the design, and then it should be a decision made like within that week or something. But then for whatever reason, more people get pulled into the decision making, or the decision takes longer, or for whatever reason, it seems like a lot of people are a bit more risk averse or hesitant, or even just slower to make decisions, which obviously then impacts program and things like that. So one example for this project was we're looking at staircases and interconnecting the 2 floors. And the original brief had 1, but because of the size of the floor plates, we'd suggested doing 2. 1 kind of centrally in each kind of wing of the building. Obviously, that's an added cost, but it took quite a long time for the client to decide that they'd only do 1. And then they thought about like moving it to another location after we kind of finished the space planning. So that obviously impacts program, time, cost, everything. We have kept it in the location we had it and moved the other one. But yeah, interested to hear what you're finding.
Yeah, I guess people are understandably, if you're a client spending a lot of money on a space and bringing people back, I guess people are just wanting to like sense check and double check like more than ever before, because making sure that it's going to work and they're going to get their return on investment. I feel like everybody's very watched. Like, is it going to deliver? Like, when is it going to deliver? Or what is it going to deliver?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, why are we doing this? And so I feel there's lots of money. It all boils down to money, doesn't it? Like, pretty much. And it's people are just like protecting themselves, I guess, and just taking care and feeling like they're doing their due diligence. So it's all coming from a good place. I get it. But then again, it slows down the project, or it slows down the design, or it can mean things a bit fragmented if they take over a longer period of time. It's not so flowing in terms of your job.
Not even just in the kind of design process, we're finding it even more kind of earlier stages as well. Like a lot of clients will kind of have an upcoming lease expiry, and they'll come to us and say, oh, we don't know whether we want to stay in this building or take a new one, for example, and we'll be then kind of engaged to do space planning of both their existing building and a newly proposed building. But often they'll have left it so late in the process that they'll either need to leave that building or need to stay because they can't then negotiate the kind of lease. Or the other thing is they'll have agreed a lease, but they'll agree it so late that they need to get out of that building and into the new one. So the only program that kind of works for them is a really quick paced design and build program. So there's very limited involvement that we can do in that to make it their ideal office.
That's a good message for everybody though, because I feel time is probably one of the biggest. I mean, we think about money, but time is one of the biggest commodities that you can't get back. And it's when I talk about to people, when people talk to me about sustainability, that's one of the things that often comes up is you need more time to be sustainable, to think about your waste or to think about repurposing stuff, or if you're going to buy secondhand, you've got to have more time to do that. You can't just buy it off a shelf. It's a decision process because it's not just the showroom tours. So there's so many things, and this is just in sustainability, but let alone all the other leases and the other complications. And time often gets undervalued. I think. Absolutely.
It's that thing, we always hear it from other consultants and everyone says it, and it's so true. The earlier you can get us involved, the better, because it's the greater value of advice that we can offer, the more coordination we can do with other consultants, the greater consideration we can give to challenges and risks, and just the more time we can spend on it for you.
No, that's interesting. It's good to know. And dreams. Wild dreams. Where would it be? What would it be? What colour would it be?
Oh God. I actually forgot to have a think about this question, but it reminds me of when I did my interview for KKS. I got asked the dreaded question, where would you like to be in 5 years? And I just completely off the cuff said, sitting on a boat drinking champagne.
Sitting what?
Sitting on a boat drinking champagne, and they loved it. Everyone just started laughing. I'll stick to the same one. No, I think in terms of the industry or personally or what?
What would be your wildest dream project, really? Is there a particular brand you really imagine working for one day, or dream of working for, or location?
I have to say, honestly, I don't know for sure. I'm generally very open to things and opportunities, and I pride myself on taking as many opportunities as possible. Something I learned early is always check your emails. There's usually opportunities in there, and your LinkedIn messages. In terms of brands, I don't think I'm very brand loyal to any brands, so I'm just very open to seeing what their needs are and what they require. I think brands are interesting in the kind of workplace sector. We always kind of find it from a design perspective. We'll always get involved in obviously the look and feel of our space, but that intrinsically is involved in their purpose and their values and their brand as well, which adapts and changes over time. So it would be good to work on projects where we can really involve that purpose and value, and create spaces that can adapt to those values and reflect the employees that work there.
What inspires you the most? What gets you?
I think just being creative. I always remember, so I went to university in Dundee, and we have, I think, the only other design museum in the UK outside of London, the V&A Dundee. And I went to its kind of like opening event, and Alice Rossborn was there, the design critic, and she came out with this quote, and I can never find it online, so I may have made it up, but I'm just going to quote her on it anyway. She said, "Design is a useful tool for creative people in challenging circumstances." And I just like always love that. I think creativity is like what I want to do. Design is the tool to do it, and challenging circumstances are the application of it.
Mm-hmm. That is true, isn't it? Design is a tool for creative people.
A useful tool for creative people in challenging circumstances. If you want to simplify it, it's probably just problem solving.
Yeah. But then
not got the same ring to it.
There is, I haven't got the same ring, but there is problem solving and problem solving. You can like look at stuff very laterally, look at stuff very creatively, and some people have just got that ability, haven't they, to like flip things on the head and look at stuff from completely the other way around. And you're like, oh my goodness, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really lovely talent to have. And yeah, so if you were given a project with a really tough set of challenges that requires like a very creative approach to fixing them, you would be in your element.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd probably not say that at the time, but I'd love it reflectively.
You'd be stressed all the time.
Probably, yeah.
What's one of the biggest challenges you could have?
I don't think one challenge is too much. It's when they kind of like add up to one bigger challenge, creating like an almost compound challenge, and they're all kind of codependent on each of them being solved to create a solution. I think that's the most challenging. It goes back to that almost coordination thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's like what you're saying about like time on its own isn't too big a problem because you can chuck money at it or whatever, but then time and budget and these other demands like sustainability, then it starts to become like
it's like a never-ending list of things you need to get through.
Yeah, and they conflict with each other. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, that pushes you to your limit, should I say?
Yeah, it's interesting though. I think it's just your mental capacity to deal with things and like remember each of these moving parts in like succinctness with one another. You can always like chip away at things, but sometimes there's things in the periphery that you don't see and you're like, damn, it's got me.
Are you an organized person?
It depends what aspect of my life.
Actually, that does make sense.
Yeah.
It does make sense.
Yeah, I try to be organized. I'm really good at, in our studio, like organizing events and kind of people and projects. But then in my personal life, I'm just like, it's fine. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it's that kind of duality of people. Like if you do it quite a lot, then sometimes you like a break from it. So if you're quite organized in your personal life, you might want a bit of a break in your professional life, or vice versa.
Yeah, I didn't even thought of that. But that's quite true, yeah. I can see that being a thing, especially in my case. So I'm quite organised, like sometimes, but not always. Maybe it's just I want a break.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'd put it down to that.
Yeah, I mean, organising things takes effort, time, and energy as well. So sometimes you've just reached the maximum energy or time that you put into that, and you're like, nope.
If you were to relax, just zen, totally zen, are you with people or on your own?
Very good question. It depends on the circumstances. We were saying outside, I've just come back from a conference in Mykonos Workspace Meets, which was incredible. It was kind of like 3 days of really engaging conversations and meetings and a lot of new people. And it was incredible, but it was really intense socially. So by the time it got to the Friday, I was just my social battery was like completely low. So I was just like laying on a sunbed, like, don't speak to me, no one speak to me. But then my partner came out and we had a holiday, and just gradually the social battery kind of like built back up. So it depends, like, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I'm just picking away like at things, hearing you, what inspires you. It's so energizing, I guess, and thinking about your dream project and what that would look like. And yeah, it's humans are like incredibly like adaptable people, which also make them complicated.
Yeah.
Because they can, especially creative people, because they can flex and change dependent on the scenarios and the circumstances. The animal,
Chameleon, yeah.
Chameleon, I can say it.
Chameleons of creativity.
Yeah, it's true though, isn't it? And it kind of means that you can't be put in a box, which is a great thing. Like, it's a brilliant trait and talent to have. But then, yeah, I guess answering like a set question, like on what your dream is.
Yeah. Changes every day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's excellent. So what is next for you?
Well, I don't know. Christmas.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Big plans?
Yeah, no, my partner and I were doing kind of like split Christmases. So last year we went to his family, which is in Essex, and then this year we'll go to my family. So that's up in Scotland. That'll be a bigger trip. I've got a new nephew this year as well, which will be nice to meet him.
Exciting. Brilliant. And any messages for anyone listening? Anything you want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I know. Interesting. Yeah, just never stop. Keep being creative. Keep trying new things and enjoy yourself.
And ask questions.
Yes. Never stop asking questions.
What is a grommet?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Blair. I love your energy. I love what you've shared. I love the message for everybody, really, but thinking of junior designers listening in, and yeah, what they could learn, what they could pick up, and inspire them and kind of empower them to maybe, to push themselves out.
You know more than you think you know, but never stop learning.
Yeah, that's a great finishing note. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you very much for listening. I'm also very grateful to all our guests. Or if you know who else would like to join the podcast, share the names. We're always open to hearing. Until next time, keep happy, keep healthy, and take care.